and welcome to the People Power Lunch Hour. I'm your host, Vanessa Maria Graber, and on today's show, we're going to be speaking with Ben Miller. He's an activist working around immigrant rights, who are working in the food industry. And later on in the show, we're going to be talking to Marangeli Mejia Rebel, and she is the festival director of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. The People Power Lunch Hour broadcasts live every week on WPPM 106.5 FM and also on Philly Cam TV. It's a show for the community. Talk about local organizing, social movements, and issues that matter to them. Stay tuned. We'll have all that and more on this edition of the People Powered Lunch Hour. Welcome back to the People Power Lunch Hour. I'm Vanessa Maria Graber, and today I'm joined in the studio by Ben Miller. He is the co-owner of the South Philly Barbacoa, and he's also the founder of the Popular Alliance for Undocumented Workers here in Philadelphia. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Vanessa. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the organization that you started and some of the work that you've been doing with undocumented workers, specifically who have been working in the restaurant and food industry.
Yeah, the organization, as it's still coming together, it's kind of just been formed organically just by people, cooks, and people working in the food industry that see that there's this glaring issue that the restaurant industry, as it has been built up through the use of undocumented labor, and this is something that's not going to be dealt with unless we have a conversation about it. So it's been an attempt to start conversations, say, we're working alongside, people who are undocumented, but they deserve dignity and respect and not to be exploited. So we've organized around our skill set and talents, which are, cooking, throwing events, and trying to raise awareness and see what else we can do with the platform that chefs are given in our culture.
And have you seen, a change in the organizing since, the Trump administration has taken office? And, have you seen people want to become more involved in taking action around immigration issues? Not just the people who are undocumented, but other people in the restaurant community who maybe are working with some of these folks.
I really thought I was going to see more protests in the street. After January 20th, I thought really it was going to be like occupy the whole country and just shut it down until Trump is gone. But we're still working on it. It seems like some things are tapering off and some things are getting going. But people are finding that they do have a voice. They have and people that haven't been outspoken before, maybe can feel like they feel more now that they can speak about things. As far as really what has changed since the election, the issue has been, under a Democratic president with tons of deportations and harder to organize people, easier with a common enemy that is so clearly racist and xenophobic and all these things that so that's been in a sense helpful. for organizing, but also, making it difficult, taking away our civil liberties daily, and making us look, and embarrassing the nation, as the front of the nation, every day, something else.
Right. And, what's the sense of people who are undocumented, that, some of the people that you work with? I mean, even now on social media, I see a lot of claims that ICE is in South Philly, ICE is on
They are.
SEPTA,
I mean, there was we have a restaurant on 9th and Ellsworth, and there was an ICE van hanging out there for a couple weeks. They're just hanging out there all day. It's like they could say they're looking for somebody, but really what they're doing is terrorizing the community. And to keep people afraid and to keep them in terror, that is like a way of controlling. People don't know their rights. There was a raid in a restaurant in Michigan a week ago, and they went in looking for somebody. They wound up going into the kitchen, talking to 3 other people, and taking them all with them. Whereas they wouldn't be able to do that in my restaurant, because I know that unless they have a warrant that's signed by a judge, they're not going to be able to, they can't step foot in my kitchen. So it's, being aware of what your rights are is super important for people in the restaurant industry to be able to protect themselves.
And what's happening in the community when these, not these rumors, I mean, we don't know if they were really at SEPTA, but ICE is around, when people start saying ICE is around, they're starting to take people away. I mean, how are they feeling when they hear about these things?
Yeah, I'm sure terrified, people having their family can be separated. My family could be separated. Our business could be shut down. So these are real palpable fears. It gives us some more strength to go at it, because we know that unless we're vocal about it, then we're not going to have any changes.
Why is it important for people like yourself, who are working with, immigrants, to get involved in this fight and to kind of be vocal and take some risks in putting yourself out there?
Well, I wouldn't call myself an activist on the front lines more than I'm a restaurant owner that can see that we're getting attention for our food, and when people come and talk to us about the food, we can take the conversation in another direction. So the spotlight doesn't have to be on us and our food and our next event, but really a systemic issue that we have to deal with, not as reactionary, but that as someone that's trying to make the change that we need. The restaurant industry is incredibly powerful in this country. It's a billions of dollar industry that's connected with fishing and farming and all the other industries, and it's really the center of people's social life. So if chefs were able to engage in these kind of conversations, it could sway public opinion. The unfortunate thing is that too many are neutral, and being neutral and being silent is also like being complicit. They're benefiting from this, system which is set up to exploit people, but to step out. I mean, I don't know what the fears are from chefs, if they're going to alienate their rich racist customers, or if or
they're gonna lose money. Maybe that's.
Unfortunately for us, we built our business serving Mexican families in South Philly, and we haven't had to pander to a rich clientele to run our business. And Philly being a progressive city, you can still have a business and still be politically minded and want to do what's best for the community at the same time, and not have to just keep silent to not offend bigots and racists that don't want you to exist anyway.
Right. So, leading up to May Day, we interviewed some people talking about the general strike, and also what was referred to a day without immigrants. Did you guys participate in that?
Yeah, we did. Our restaurant was closed for the day, but we also did some organizing, and we were actually in New York for the day. We did an event that was multicultural. We had a musical performance. We had a discussion, a panel discussion that was discussing some of the similarities in racial discrimination and discrimination against for immigration status. we had a 5-course dinner cooked from all different chefs, and it was like a pay what you want. So we're not excluding anybody from the conversation. We had some of the people who were on the street organizing and marching on the panel. We talk about different strategies of change, and so that's how we spent our May Day up in Lower East Side in New York.
So you brought a friend with you today, Shakoor
Yes.
Sanders. Introduce your friend.
This is Shakoor Sanders. He's a Philadelphia-based percussionist and folklorist. He's studied with the Cuban masters in Cuba and masters in the jazz scene in New York, and performs around the world. He's been collaborating with us since the beginning of our organizing with the dinners, and the music has always been an important component in the work that we're doing, and we see music and food as a thing that pair well together.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about, your experience with music and organizing. We often see people at WPPA, on the same path, using music, art, culture, food as a way to engage people in conversations and make change.
So just a brief background of myself. Like you said, I'm a percussionist. I'm from here. But I really, at a young age, I got really interested in Afro-Cuban percussion. And I really said to myself, I want to study the folklore of my people and how they've come to the Americas and how they've come to the New World, this place that we call home. So I said I have to dig deep into those roots. I have to find out and discover what that is. And I'm going through that discovery right now and just studying and traveling and playing with so many different artists and just trying to bring that back to my community and the level of research and understanding your roots and what we're about and how this present day sort of not understanding who we are to really reflect on who we really are, so those type of things. And Ben has allowed me to do that with the Right to Work. When we first sat down with, it was me, Ben, and Elijah, and
Elijah's another chef.
He's another chef, another great Philadelphia chef, and we all sat down. Ben said, I have a message, and Elijah said, I have this sort of way that I want to do it as well with, throwing parties and, just inviting people into an open space where it's not uncomfortable, but we can socialize over something that we all love, which is food. And I said, you know what, we should have music with this because what goes along with the message is also the art and the music, because if you have the two, it just makes it unstoppable. And the people, they relate, if they can relate to one thing, they're going to relate to the other. So to have both hand in hand, it's like me and Ben's relationship.
It's cool, too, because it brings different people from different backgrounds together. Like some people are coming for the music, some are coming because of the chef, some is coming because of the speakers, and, it kind of
opens everything.
Share the common message.
That's how we've been, though. That's like our relationship is that I come from a musical background. Ben comes from a musical background, but he's also a chef. So we keep the dialogue like that. We always talk about different things, and we're just open with each other, about race, politics, everything. We keep it an open space for everyone to be a part of.
Because the reality is it's really hard to engage people in these conversations. And, being an organizer myself, I know how hard it is to get people to come to a rally or an event or something dry like a town hall, and that actually people...
Free food, there they are.
Right,
coming through.
Food, music, artists,
drinks.
To draw a lot more people. I think
it's a tool. It's a tool that we have at our disposal that... we've given the platform to people like Juntos and the New Sanctuary Movement to come to our dinners and to address all the people who are coming, talking about the work that they're doing in Berks and, highlighting the local work that's going on, talking about the national issues, and letting people just have the mic and tell their story of why they came here, how they're working. My wife, Christina, is an undocumented immigrant. She came from Mexico. She's here working, supporting her daughter in nursing school. Crossed illegally, and even through her marriage with me, can't get a green card or anything. Because the way that the laws are set up, she would have to go to live in Mexico for 10 years before she could even apply for it. This is an intentional thing that is meant to keep people here that are vulnerable and exploitable and working. But there's no way around it for me unless we can change the law. So we figure we try to use the platform that we have to see what direction that could go.
And I would say that what makes Ben and Christina very special is that the camaraderie and just the relationship that they have with the artists and the musicians. It's not like, I'm playing this gig with Ben and this, I'm receiving this payment and we're out and that's it. It's a hit. But it's like, you understand, you kind of sort of, it makes you rethink, your compositions and what you're composing and how you're composing for what. So you come into
it's a holistic sort of thing.
It's a really it's a deepness because
I say the luxury of Christina having such a strong background and having the restaurant set up in such a kind of simple way. We have 3 things on the menu. We're open 3 days a week, and it allows us to use the restaurant as also a platform for our other interests. Including putting art on the walls. We have art shows every other month or so with some great artists, and working with musicians, doing collaborative stuff in the community, and the consistency of the restaurant is what allowed us to do all that.
Could restaurants be more engaged with their community? I mean, what you're doing sounds really unique, but there's so many restaurants in so many communities. Could they serve as hubs for the community?
I think what's been effective in our case is we've shared our own personal story, and everybody has a different personal story and a different part in the fight, for equality and brotherhood for everybody. If people would share their personal story, I think that it could be very effective. I don't think mixing business and politics is a bad thing, especially in a place like Philadelphia, where we've got new customers who are engaged with us politically and become more loyal customers, and they really understand our story. They're not just coming to for the decadent food, but they can engage on us like on a real human level.
Do you have any other events or dinners or things coming up as part of continuing your work?
Well, we've done 11 dinners here in Philly, and so we saw the need to take that message out of Philly. The last dinner we did in Philly was pretty great. It was for 200 people. We had flown in some of the chefs and panelists.
Zagat was here.
Yeah, there was a couple different documentaries happening there.
Nice.
A lot of press around it. It was cool, but we don't want to keep preaching to the same crowd, and so we tried to develop that into a structure that we can teach to other people in different cities of, okay, here's what you need from the chefs, here's what you need from the front of the house people, here's what the musician's role, here's how you can promote it with social media, and this is some sort of messaging that you guys can use to try to mimic this thing in other cities. So New York was the first one that we've done outside of Philly. We have some other contacts in other cities, and we're working on putting some stuff together now in Atlanta and New Orleans and Detroit on the West Coast. And since the dinners have been a tool for organizing people, but after a while it's like, okay, we're making people aware of this stuff, but what else can we do? We got together with the Scheller Center at Temple Law, and they helped us draft a resolution for City Council that Helen Gim took on and sponsored and got passed in Philly. This was a week or two before May Day. And basically the resolution said, we acknowledge that the undocumented people have contributed to the growth of the restaurant industry. All people deserve protection, that working is a human right. And so the idea is, okay, so we have these dinners that we can take to different cities. We can also bring this idea of organizing for this resolution, in with the dinner, so that the people at the dinner can go away, they can talk to their people in their city council, and maybe this resolution can pass in many different cities, and that can build like a more of a coalition, bring more voices out, and because ultimately labor is a federal issue.
And, we're sort of seeing that coalesce around all the sanctuary cities, starting to rally together and say, we're not going to change, which is positive, right? Because, a lot of the work that a lot of organizers are doing, you know, trying to put the immigrants' voices at the forefront of this movement. Tell us how this has changed you as a musician. Have you participated in all these dinners or just a few?
Yeah, I would say I've been at just about most of them. There's a couple that I wasn't at because I was out doing some engagements. For a minute, I was in Europe for a while, so I couldn't be for a couple of events. So it was nice, but it's just changed my overall view of what, you know, how I look at food and, you know, who's preparing the food, where the food is coming from, and my respect for the restaurant and what restaurant means, you know, coming from Ben to restore people and to really, when you come into a restaurant, it's almost like going to a yoga studio, a yoga class. That's the enlightenment. You know, you sort of get this enlightenment sort of feeling when you get the food coming through your body and you get this experience as euphoric. So it's changed my mind on my options and where I go and eat and, you know, who I'm hanging around and where the food is coming from. It's just opened my mind to so many different things. And, you know, I'm very careful about what I put into my body and where I go. And just the typical nourishments that I eat every day about that. So then it's opened me and awakened me to a lot of those things.
As a consumer, I think about, too, where I eat and what are the political beliefs of the people that I'm spending my money on. And, you know, it makes a difference of what restaurants I go to eat too, and I think I think consumers have this big power also, and they could also, you know, urge the restaurateurs to really get in the game. You know, there's people within this city that have built their empire with undocumented workers that don't want to say anything about it. You know, don't want to shake it up, obviously because it's illegal. You know, but we cannot get our way out of it unless we can talk about it the way it is first.
And also being real about how dependent on immigrants and undocumented workers so many of these restaurants are, you know, and if we really were to deport all of them, what would happen? You know, what are the implications of that? And for many of these businesses, not an option, you know, so they're kind of like covertly want these immigrants to stay because, you know, a lot of their businesses would fall apart. But at the same time, they're not doing anything to advocate for them to legally be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important if you want to see a progressive change in the industry and the field that you work in, then you have to be able to critique the structure of the industry that you're within. You know, whether it be music whatever, or food or
same thing
or whatever. There's politics that are within. You know, the restaurant industry is has a long history of being exploitative and low paying and harsh working conditions, and there's so many reforms that have to happen in the restaurant industry, and but none of them are going to happen unless we actually make some effort to do it, because there are people actively working the other way to make it less equitable and, you know, to keep wages low and keep people exploited. And so we have to feel that we have a power in kind of coming together and pushing for this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, if you've ever worked in the restaurant or food industry, you know, a lot of artists, musicians, activists, you know, that's how they make their living, you know, because of the flexible hours and, you know, the ability to make cash.
Free lunch.
Right, free lunch sometimes. Depends on where you work. But, you know, so there's already these people kind of immersed in this industry, you know, but there's not a whole lot of mobilizing going on. And what winds up happening most times is people just go from job to job instead of trying to stay where they're at and improve the conditions there, because it becomes difficult if you're the only one advocating for changes.
I mean, sure. I mean, I worked for 10 years for other people before we were working for ourselves, and there's a very limited amount that you can really go out on a limb and say, you know, and want to keep your job, and all, you know, especially, you know, talking to the media and stuff. That's something that I've only been able to really do as an owner of the business. So it's definitely, you know, difficult. But yeah, one of the other things that Shakoor and I have been discussing recently is how to even integrate the idea of cooking and food more. We recently did a small performance cooking class sort of thing where, you know, the instruments and the composition was following along with the cooking demonstration, but the difference is that afterward everybody can eat. So this is an idea that we're working on.
Yeah, it's a new concept that me and Ben, we're in the womb, and we're getting to the part where we're gonna give birth to something soon. So, we're in the womb right now, but we're coming up with these a live composition of music and food together, and for you to see the process of how a musician creates and constructs certain rhythmic and melodic and harmonic sensations right in front of your face, while he's actually doing the same thing with water, with just the basic
simmering, with the chopping, all the things have different sounds.
So many different sounds are going on. So we're like, we want to bring these concepts to the people, and actually for the people to, this is a live performance, and be a part of that, and then eat the experience of the music and the food. So it's like it's not so much, when you come to this restaurant, I'm in the back, he's in the back, and you hear the music, you taste the food, and then you go home, you say, wow, the music and food was great. You see both of us. We're both visible.
We've had to work real hard at it with these dinners, also at like putting the musician as like a centerpiece, and because so much is like, okay, you have dinner and then you have a band, it's a background, or else like you go to see a band at a club and the food is the background. But like, how do we like put both on the center stage,
to make it? Yeah.
I like the idea of having some kind of like harmony and rhythms with the chopping and the simmering.
Oh man, you should have been at the last performance. It was amazing.
But that's how you start out. I remember taking percussion lessons in high school, and there were so many of us. Each of us has like a little part, like the triangle, the claves, the wood block, the cowbell, and it's like that, but with the sounds of cooking. Is that kind of what you're describing?
Yeah, basically, yeah. When he goes to one sort of element of cooking, I'll go and imitate the sounds, or we'll try to figure out how we're going to compose this rhythm on top of this rhythm, and he's chopping, and then I may take a part of a certain rhythm, and say, cool, I'm dedicated to this certain chopping pattern, and it's a conversation. Like
the other cool thing with the musician life is like they have this kind of built-in lifestyle of going on tour and having fan bases in different cities. So now we're kind of exploring the idea of taking a dinner on tour, and so I just see how like this could be like a different idea for chefs to be going on tour with musicians and having food and music going together. I would love to go to a concert and get a good meal, or this sort of thing.
Yeah, we're just crazy.
We're just exploring our interests, but we have the ability to create a cool event that people are going to come to, and then we can have the opportunity to talk about some things that are personal for us.
I love it. Engaging people through food and music and love. It sounds like there's a lot of love coming from the two of you.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you both for joining the show. If you're just tuning in, I've been speaking with Ben Miller and Shakoor Sanders, and they've been working with immigrants and the community, doing these dinners, joining together music, art, political engagement, food, all the good stuff to get people rallied around, supporting the undocumented community.
That's right. There's 11 million undocumented people here, and they're not going anywhere. But we have to come out of our place of privilege to say that we want to make sure that there's dignity and protection for everybody.
Can you tell our listeners how they can find more information about the PAUWR Alliance for Undocumented Workers?
There's a website that's PAUWR.org. Also, we have a restaurant, and you can come and talk to us.
South Philly Barbacoa.
South Philly Barbacoa is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the morning and for lunch. And then our other spot is on 9th and Ellsworth. It's called El Compadre. And that is open 7 days a week for lunch over there.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, it's Ben Miller and Shakoor Sanders. And they've been doing excellent work in the community. Thank you so much for joining
Vanessa.
us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to talk to Marangeli Mejia Rebel, and she is the festival director of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. All right, stay tuned. You're listening to the People Power Lunch Hour on WPPM 106.5 FM and watching on Philly Cam TV.